and we're not looking at any regions, we think everybody will benefit.
Okay, there are those who have brought up the issue of equity, which also your reform is trying to address. Besides issues such as the North isn't producing as much, they've been bedeviled by insecurity. Some people have even limited this conversation to alcohol consumption and destruction versus agricultural produce. So if you can explain that further to explain where the equity comes in here. And, speaking to what you've just said, I wonder why Lagos even agreed. Lagos should be the one throwing tantrums, but Lagos agreed. Yet the North is not agreeing. But speak to that conversation about the equity. Where is the equity in all of this?
Yeah, I don't think it's about whether Lagos agreed. I think Lagos is just more understanding. Because for them, if you do the correction, they'll lose out. But if you increase the amount you share based on derivation, they get a bit of that back. So the impact of them should be moderate. But in terms of the equity, so again, this is why it's important to always speak to data.
Yeah.
So people would say, well, they don't allow alcohol in the North, they don't allow tobacco, and then they're sharing the VAT. But guess what? The contribution of tobacco, alcohol to VAT is less than 3%. Just about 2-point-something%. So it's
very minimal.
It's minimal. That's the first point. The second point is when it comes to food, we have more food production coming from the North, and food is exempt from VAT. Our proposal is going to make it zero VAT, so you even remove any traces of VAT at all. But for us, we said, why are we recognizing the contribution of every state based on the VAT we've collected, rather than the production that they have made? So there's no law by the United Nations or anybody that says you must count the VAT. We're saying, why don't we count the value of the production? So that becomes the derivation, which we then use as a basis to share the VAT. And this is the most equitable and fair approach that you can even think of. Because take Benue, for example, they produce a lot of food. We said, don't charge VAT on food so that people can be able to afford it. Why do you then punish Benue for producing food for us to eat? If you get to a point where states are enacting their VAT law, Benue will be forced to put VAT on food, and all of us will be in trouble, particularly the poorest people. So we feel that the approach is going to help. And it's not correct when people say that there's no production in the North. That's not what the data is showing us. The largest items that contribute to VAT in Nigeria are telecommunication, you have cement, you have sugar. These items, soft drinks, these items are, in most cases, more heavily consumed in the North, more than even the South. You have a fair share of that distribution across Nigeria. So we don't want it to be a regional conversation because it is not. That's not what the data is showing us. But in addition to that, we have this 5% that we asked the federal government to cede to states. And we believe that can be available as a stabilization transfer to ensure that any state that has significant shortfall in their revenue as a result of our proposal can then be compensated from that stabilization fund.
In other words, the federal government takes 10% as against the current 15% they're getting. But let me ask you, I mean, the bills passed second reading on the floor of the Senate today. It's not yet Uhuru. It's a long journey to go. What do you envisage as it enters the public hearing stage? Do you envisage a situation where perhaps you'll be forced to change equity, which also your reform is trying to address? Besides issues such as the North isn't producing as much, they've been bedeviled by insecurity. Some people have even limited this conversation to alcohol consumption and destruction versus agricultural produce. So if you can explain that further to explain